The Reef Therapy Podcast is powered by ICP Analysis. If you'd like to win a free saltwater ICP analysis kit and a freshwater analysis kit, all you have to do is leave a comment down below using the hashtag What's in Your Water. If you're listening to the audio-only version, head on over to YouTube and you can enter in the comment section there. ICP Analysis will test over 50 elements down to parts per trillion. These tests can also be used to see if there's any undesirable elements in your aquarium as well. Register your aquarium on the ICP Analysis app, fill your sample, place it back into the bag, slap on that included postage, and have your results 1 to 3 days after it's received. More at icpanalysis.com.
Okay, welcome to Reef Builders Ladies Takeover, where we sometimes talk about the things we say we're going to talk about.
Yes, but we're going to do a good job this time, and we're going to actually stick to our topics.
And we have special guests. Jen, you're a special guest.
Oh, I'm a special guest today?
Yeah, just kidding. It's just because Jen hasn't been with us for a while, so she's our special guest.
I've been busy.
Welcome back.
Welcome Thank you.
Golf clap.
So we thought that we would just quickly follow up on the last episode that we did, because we talked about inverts. We talked about ones that we liked, but we kind of didn't talk as much about what they did. And maybe also, Jen, if you had any interesting inverts you wanted to throw in, or little facts or guys that you love that you wanted to add in, because that was one where we were missing you. So I don't know if you had any specifically that you love to use.
Well, it is that season where people are coming back after, being, we're getting ready, obviously for us in the summer to get outside. So it's like invert season's kind of a thing where you stock up so that you can, not do as much with your tank in the summertime. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you guys covered like Blackfoot Trochus. I'm not.
We didn't get specific. We said Trochus, but yeah.
Yeah, the Blackfoots are fantastic. The one thing I don't know if a lot of people realize, not only are they great algae eaters, but they can flip themselves over, which is very important, especially like when you're dealing with a snail, because a lot of the like turbos and other things like that, they just end up on their backs and then they die. Mm-hmm. So, but Trochus are really good for, in my opinion, they're good all over kind of glass and rock. So they kind of do everything. Definitely would choose them as call it kind of like your all around cleaner. I think they're a must have in every single tank. They're not aggressive. They don't, they're great. And they're not bulldozers. They're not abnormally large, and they can maintain their own, I think. And I've had them breed in aquariums too. So, that's helpful too. Cause they kind of, over time, everything's gotten expensive, but they're kind of $5-6 for a snail back in the day when they were $1.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a little inflation for you.
And they kind of hit a couple different types of algae, so that's nice. They do a little bit of everything.
And then I think a lot for us, especially at the store, a lot of new tanks coming in. So people go through that ugly diatom stage. So, even going to, and I have all these wonderful notes, but Seraph snails, I think, are a kind of an underrated thing. They look very similar. Obviously, they have the same shell as like a redleg, but they'll bury themselves in the sand. They're not really good for glass cleaning, I would say, but they're great detritivores. So that diatom early on, in your new cycle tank, they're a really good option. I think those are the big ones when we do our invert or we call it snailed it inverts of the week.
I've noticed a little bit of a difference between the Mexican Seraph and then, I don't know if you want to call them Caribbean or what we collect in Florida, the knobby Seraph. And I seem to have better luck with the knobbies than the Mexicans. But also I noticed that the hermit crabs like their shell shape over the Trochus and Astrea shell.
Yep. So, and then, they all need a vacation home, so they go and rip them. And then half the time they don't even want that one. I didn't want that one anyway.
I try to leave some of those. I'll pull big extra shells, but I'll try to leave those specific shape shells because they do want to go after those guys.
Yeah, so I'll leave a pile in the corner too. So we have them at the store, so people come and pick. Like we have the kiddos that come and pick them for jewelry, and then
Mhm.
the hobbyists that come and get them for their for their snails and the hermits.
Yeah, we used to do that same thing. And
Also, oh god,
I was just going to say some of these things they are nocturnal, so you're not always going to see them out in the morning, or sometimes before the lights come out, they're out in the morning in just like ambient light. But I know my big striped turbo, not the Mexicans, but the other ones, whatever those are, they're definitely, he has a parking spot. So at night, I know where he is, and he'll come out from his parking spot and work at night, and then go right back in like a little trash truck. So
that's awesome.
keep that in mind as you're looking in there, and you're like, "Oh, my snails aren't doing anything." Well, look at night, maybe.
Yeah, and I know that hair algae is like one of the most common things too for a lot of our customers that come in and they want certain things for that. I think turbos are great, but I mean they end up starving over time. They
Mhm.
actually need a tremendous amount of food in order to survive.
Yeah.
So just adding one,
Yeah.
but hair algae we kind of do like a trifecta where we do. You can do a turbo. You can do anything that also enjoys like a filamentous. Emerald crabs will pick at that, not as much, but also urchins. And I think those are fun to add. And I mean, they're fun to add because it almost seems like it's not just adding like a snail that you'll never see, but they kind of, and I call them all kleptos because like they have zohats and all the other things that they steal along with the hair algae that they eat.
Sometimes they rescue those frags that you just
That's fair.
lost track
That's
of, and then they
Rescue
pull them
and
out, and you're like,
destroy.
"Oh, hey, I forgot I had that one. Thanks for bringing it out here for me."
If only they
Yeah.
did that all the time.
And then I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, but sea hares.
Yeah.
Those
Oh
are
yeah,
great.
I love the blue
Those are great
spot.
for. Oh,
Yeah.
those are, yeah. I haven't seen those in a really long time. They're beautiful.
Yeah, those are really
And we might
beautiful.
have
And
left that
they're
one off.
smaller too, so you don't have to really worry about this. Like, have you guys ever gotten like the really big, like giant Shrek slugs? Like, you have someone come in and they've got like a 29 biocube, and you're like, well, this might be all I have in stock right now, and it's just this giant slug, and they're like, what am I can't do this. And I was like, I know, you just gotta wait. I'm sorry.
It's like a sea turd. That's yeah.
It is.
We
It's
call them
really
vagabonds because we oftentimes like, okay, once your hair algae's gone, bring it back, and then we give it to somebody else because they
Yeah.
like turbos, they need a lot of food and constant feeding,
Just
And
plan
they
to
will-
move it on. once
Yep.
it's done.
So it's like our vagabond program where it's like, bring it back, we'll rehome it, we'll give you credit, just like our Harlequin shrimp.
Yeah. That's what
Bring
I do.
them in, have them eat all your asterina starfish, and then I guess that's not an algae, but it is a really interesting invert that, if you have the right environment for, they're actually very, very beautiful.
Oh, I never did swapsies with harlequins. I love keeping them myself. So I always had one in my tanks, and there would be customers that would come in and they would see how social mine was, and then they would want it eventually. But I mean, that's a kind of cool thing to do, is to be able to swap out a harlequin. And have
Yeah,
a
so now we have these huge ones at the store. I mean, they're absolutely beautiful. You can see all the big polka dots on them. But yeah, we just swap them out.
That's cool.
So those are kind of like the main, the main algae that we have like actual, like a plan for, I guess. I mean, dinos is always that one that everyone wants something, but there's absolutely nothing that eats it. So
And we can have, I guess a weird one would be like lettuce sea slugs for the bryopsis, if you can keep them in there and not have them eaten by your wrasses. That's a thing.
And when we were talking earlier this week, that I thought was super interesting that those lettuce sea slugs are photosynthetic. I absolutely did not know that.
Yeah, no, that was a really cool thing to learn during our little brainstorm session.
Yeah, I think
so. So I mean, and that and the pom-pom crab, and I don't know if you guys shared that earlier, but we need to reiterate the pom-pom crab shed, where they take off their palms, put them aside, shed their skin.
I have to verify that, but that's like one of those things in the back of my head that I read somewhere and then just totally forgot the source, and it's just in there.
Well,
so if someone can
I'm hoping I'm hoping it's true, because that's pretty fantastic.
I mean, what else what do you do with them? Like they're molting their body off, so it's like there's got to be something they're doing with them in there.
Yeah, like you take your clothes off, take a shower, you take your socks off, put them over here.
Yeah, you hang your robe on the door, and then you got a spot for it.
Yeah,
yeah,
except
that was
when
cool.
then you have a dumb dog named Greg who comes and steals your socks, just like you'd have another opportunist pom-pom crab that's like, I need a pom-pom, and you look like you need to shit.
yeah, share
He's gonna
the wealth.
hang out over here.
I'm gonna hang over here. I'll watch. I'll be your guardian of your pom-poms, and then they come back. They're
Yes,
like,
He gets done molting, comes out, he's short a pom-pom. What happened?
I'm not sure.
To circle back, like just for a second too, I've used urchins for Coraline algae control. So sometimes it gets a little crazy with the Coraline algae. I try to keep it off of the viewing panels, but leave it on the back. But even then, sometimes it's sheeting off because there's so much of it. So I've put urchins in there, and it's wild how even they'll take it off your rock, and your rock is bright white.
I know.
Where
Do you find that it's only the long spines that eat the Coraline?
I have a tuxedo, or no, it's a pincushion. It's a pincushion.
Pincushion. I've only ever really had really good success with the long spines, getting to like the really heavy sheets of it though. Because one of the downsides to whenever your Coraline algae is really healthy and growing rapidly is that when it does get into those sheet stages, it is a huge calcium hog. I mean, just massive calcium hog. But it's cool.
Yeah.
I used to love taking like dinner plate sizes off the back wall of my 1,200 gallon mixed reef, and I just pull a whole sheet off and just give it to a customer and be like,
for seeding purposes.
You kind of
because
it's like a picking thing. Like you kind of poke, and then just such a gratifying feeling when it's all in one sheet.
It's one of those little satisfying moments.
You know what's funny? I don't know if Jen was here for this, but like when I actually used the urchin for my own tank, and I had forgot about him. And then we're listening to all Rich Ross's like coral spawning podcast that's like in the back of my head. And I get home one night and I see little like orange, I've never seen spawning in person, but I see little orange, tiny little dots falling out of my favia. And I was like, no way, it's spawning, like, because it's in the back of my head. That urchin had gone across it and just pooped his little pink turds into my favia. And the favia was eating
this conversation. That conversation was so fun.
I sent Evie videos and I'm like, dude, my favia is spawning. And it looks like it's spawning. Like it looks like they're coming out of the mouth of the favia because it's actually in reverse. The favia was eating it. So the feeder tentacles were out. And it looked like some of them were falling out of the mouth of the favia. And I'm like, I'm taking
maybe it did
videos.
A taste test. And then it was like,
it was like calcium.
It's like poop.
And then it got weird. And then,
And then I saw, but then I was so mad. I was like, it's just urchin crap. Like, I was so mad. I was like, my favia is spawning. No, it's urchin crap. It just went like, plummeted right after.
That was a good like 3-minute laugh on my side when we were messaging. I was like,
oh yeah. I was using exclamation marks and everything. I was like, it's spawning. And then it was immediate.
Look at this.
Disappointment immediately. But so for, Coraline management, that's something that people can use if you have that problem.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Coraline is an algae.
There you go.
Yes, it is. It's one of the prettier algae.
So I always tell people that that's the one that they want. It actually will seal your rock. It helps to seal it, and so that pest algae can't grow on it. So I, that's like established reef. So it's like, okay, if you want, like do this. I'm not even going to get into Coraline in a bottle because we're not going there, but not a thing. But yeah.
But you can share your Coraline algae. Well, and if you don't have it, I know some people will bring it in margarita snails when their shells get covered in the pink Coraline, just staying on the thread of this. Bring them in for film cleaning and side effect. They have the Coraline on their shells, so it can help seed the tank.
Oh, that's actually a really cool little tip. Never
it's
really
a little extra benefit side effect. Of course, we know that also snails can bring in some stuff you don't want. So we touched a little bit about quarantining cleanup crew. Maybe
which is a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that is it's a legit. So at the store, we actually will keep our inverts in fishless systems.
Yeah.
When we get them in, because bringing in anything, fish disease, other things too that are, you know, the water trapped in their shells and such. That's a real thing.
I talked about a little bit about the benefit of advertising that. Like, you may do it. A lot of stores may do it, but make sure you advertise. These are coming from
That's
fish
fair.
systems. And that it promotes people to buy them because of that advertise, you know.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I mean, and I don't, I mean, who knows, like even a couple of years ago, you know, people would say, oh, you know, haven't had any fish. I don't know how this happened, you know, and no one ever thought about inverts because, you know, you just didn't. And now it's, I mean, it has become, you know, we're more aware.
Yeah, I think with education going on with all the quarantining efforts that go through the stores, even the wholesaler facilities, and then to your end consumer, there's so much more knowledge out there and people willing to take the time and do the dedication to understanding the quarantining process. I think it's awesome that there's so much more going on with that now. Because it used to just be, just you need 10 snails. Here we go.
Yep.
And it wouldn't even.
And it
have
was
gone
way
through
too
the
much
process
cleanup crew for what we needed too, because people always had this gallon per snail thing. That's just not. They have to eat too, like Jenna was saying. You know, like they have to eat. So why is your cleanup crew dying? Well, do you really need that much cleanup crew? Do you have the needs?
Yeah, they're like, can I get 5 emerald crabs? I'm like, do you have a bubble algae problem? They're like, no, it's a new tank. I'm like, no, let's do something else.
Yeah. Do you want to feed your or you can Little Mermaid your emerald crabs and you feed them like look at me and they'll be like, give.
Look, they just found their favorite places. Okay, that's just all that happened, and then I just capitalized on it. And was like, okay, you park here. This is your zone. Here's a treat. You're parking here. Here's your zone. Because I feel like a lot of animals within the aquarium eventually do get their little zones, and if you just kind of promote them staying there by feeding them really well, they're just like, okay, the food comes to me. I don't have to go look for it. It works out very, very well. I have a very loud bird in the back.
I was like, is that
it's
outside
not
or inside
mine?
bird?
He belongs in the wild, but he apparently
it's a
has
wild bird.
Yeah, he's not mine.
He's very angry.
He would also very upset.
He would also like an emerald crab.
Yeah, exactly.
She feeds the outside birds too.
Yeah, he's
Snow White and Little Mermaid over here.
Yeah.
Oh
my gosh.
Along the lines of too many, I know sometimes we get disappointed when we don't get the size snails, more like coming into the store from the wholesalers. We order blue legs and they're like that big.
Tic Tacs.
Yeah, and we tend to get disappointed, but I was thinking to myself recently, honestly, there's holes and spots and crevices for every size of animal. So I kind of made myself feel a little better about that because I was like, you know what? Every little crevice needs something to clean it. So all different sizes of cleanup crew.
And I mean, to be honest with you, they're way better than us at cleaning. I mean, we did an experiment where we had like different types of algae, and then we put a whole bunch of different cleanup crew in each one to see who cleaned it the fastest. We never documented it though. That's kind of a shame, but we were actually trying to look to see if anything really ate Bryopsis, and it was interesting because we had these rocks that were covered with all sorts of different types of algae, and they picked the rock absolutely clean, and then it's just stupid Bryopsis. They're like, not touching that.
I've seen that with what is it, Lingbia algae, which is, I guess, cyanobacteria, right? If you put a sea hare in there, they literally like rear up. They're like, ugh, like they hate.
It's probably
like,
toxic. I wonder if it's toxic to them. Also, another interesting fact, or I mean, I guess I can't prove it because I haven't done it. But if hair algae gets too long, nothing really eats it, and I don't know if you guys know why. I mean, it has too many nutrients in it. Like a big cucumber would be bitter. If it has, you leave it in the sun too long. So it has too many nutrients, so it's not palatable to many animals. So a lot of times people are like, well, I have all this hair algae and I put all of these and they won't touch it. Well, that's likely why. I mean, last time I tried the hair algae, I didn't think it was that bad. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I have tried nori, so I wasn't that shocked when you said that.
Right.
Sprinkle some on your sushi.
But so I always tell people, you need to manually I mean, first of all, let's just get it out there. That didn't happen overnight. So when the people come in and like, okay, my hair allergy is a foot long, and it just happened overnight. It's like, no. But anyway, cut it down, get
Primo.
it to, yeah, and then you'll see, and it's amazing because then they'll break it down to the base, and then things will start eating. Even the tangs, like when it's super long, you'll notice nothing will touch it. And again, I didn't do my studies of eating it and trying it to see different.
What's the term that
different lengths?
What that we use when it's not proven, but based on what you've visually seen in your experience.
Yeah.
I'll think of it later. But and then just adding one from our comments from our last podcast. It sounds like money calories, if you can get them.
Are you talking about gold ring calories?
They put money, but I would assume that's the same.
Gold ring calories are by far, they're even our invert of the week this week, but they are by far the best snail out there. They are amazing. Those are for those of you who are listening that don't know what they are, but you'll see if you travel, they make jewelry, unfortunately, out of the snail shells because they have that gold ring around them.
Oh, wow. I always thought that was like an added thing because I never brought any of them in.
Right.
So that's cool.
They're hard to, they actually are kind of hard to come by.
They're very difficult to find.
We have one supplier that supplies all of ours. So we actually always have them, but they're fantastic. And it's interesting because you'll see their actual shell during the day, or if you ever do see them, you don't really, but they'll get in and out of all the crevices. But then they have like this skin layer that comes over. I'm not very scientific obviously right now.
We're missing our resident.
The other one.
Yeah.
The other one. There's another one that I used to have.
It's a tiger calorie.
Yes, I used to have the tiger, and the tiger, it comes like almost completely up over the shell.
People are like, my snail turned black. I got to get it out. And it's like, no. They almost look fuzzy.
How big do they come in, Jen?
They're about this big.
Like quarter size,
maybe? No, just like you think of, maybe like this.
Like on the puka necklace.
Like you get stabbed by something in the tank, girl, your thumb is purple.
Oh, no, that's a pen.
Oh, okay. I was
you
like,
guys
wow,
you guys are lucky
something.
because this was actually on my forehead this morning or this afternoon.
What?
So I was sitting like this. Yeah, I'm not kidding. At my desk, and I walked out, and my employees, they're like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "I have no idea." I walked out. I had purple dots all over my forehead from.
I thought it looked like you got struck by something.
Oh no, that's on this hand. This is my fish hand, and I got torched today.
One hand to the tank.
You were thinking a little too hard today.
I was thinking too hard, but literally, I had purple polka dots. I had to scrub my face off. I'm like, sweet, we're gonna be at this podcast with like these big purple things all over, but that's what happened.
Yeah, we all have other jobs during the day.
Yeah, but back to gold rings. They, like I always tell my customers, they are worth their weight in gold. They will eat everything.
Gold.
So they are expensive. They range anywhere. It depends for us too. They're very seasonal. They can range on the cheap end from $15 maybe to up to $25, but they seem to last forever. And they're by far. I had an employee come in about 8 years ago who introduced me to those. She's like, you have to find these. I'm like, they're never on any list. I found one supplier that we get them from, and I make sure we always have them.
Yeah, I thought it was important to touch on that since, we do read our comments on our podcast.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought that up because that's one thing I totally forgot about. And they're fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Hey, so if someone wanted to buy some and their local store didn't have some, do you guys ship?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
She does ship.
I know, because I'm like, maybe I need some.
Yeah, they're fantastic. We just got a whole big shipment in too, so
cool. All right, well, I think that pretty well covers, some basics.
Bubble algae, I guess we didn't really talk about a ton, but that obviously emerald crabs would be my number one choice if we have bubble algae.
Mine too.
And your own hands and siphon.
Yep,
Yeah.
and pulling my hair out. Maybe those three things.
I used to, if I had like, sometimes I would get like that one coral or that one coral that came on on a rock, and there'd be like, like the stack of bubble algae on it. You can break it off outside of the tank, pull it away. But you'll get a little bit more that remains. I used to really like doing the 1/2 inch, or even, depending on if the bubble algae was smaller, a 1/4 inch on the flex tubing or the plastic tubing. And I'd start the siphon and I'd stick the hose right on it and wiggle and pull the algae through with the siphon. I really had good success with that. And then if, any of it breaks or goes anywhere, you're not having to worry about it just going all over the place.
Now people are actually making attachments that go on the tubing, and as you scrape it, the attachment is the piece that scrapes, and then it's siphons it out.
So I've been doing that for years, but mine's a little ghetto. It involves a rubber band.
Yeah, that's what I did.
What's the tool on the end? What's the tool on the end?
It's F-Aptasia.
Yeah,
they come with that longer syringe.
Yeah.
So it involves a longer syringe.
The metal one.
Yep. And then I'll even use the syringe and I hold them both. I was doing it today. So I'm like acrobatic, hanging off this to try to but I'll scrape it and then I'll siphon that out when I do my water changes.
We need to just buy the 3D printed ones because they're literally meant to fit on the tubing. I keep telling myself this, but I'm doing the same thing that you do.
I'm buying it I'm going to go, when we're done, because I've lost the metal tips before and whatever. It's not.
Or inevitably your rubber band stretches, and as you're scraping, it's like,
I know, and then it's all like flabby and gross. It doesn't work.
You like to do things the hard way, apparently, sometimes. But those didn't exist until recently. So
I don't know if you guys know this, but since we're talking about bubble algae, one fish that actually does a really good job that I was totally unaware of, but does a great job, is a sailfin tang.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I've had people find success with the rabbits.
With fox faces, but sailfin tangs. And I had it in several tanks where I've had it. I've come in and it's overrun with bubble algae. And I tried one of my employees said, "Hey, try a sailfin." I'm like, no, it's not going to do anything. And I put one in it and it did. So I did it again. And I've done it successfully at least 10 times. And the sailfin will keep it at bay. That because they pop it constantly and keep it at bay, just like the foxface would do as well. So I think that's like a kind of a hidden gem.
Do you hold back on feeding any sort of supplemental algae, to kind of make it focus on eating the bubble algae?
No, because they're natural grazers. And sailfins are I don't know, for some reason, I don't know why. I should maybe do a little more research on what it is, but they're so natural. They're naturally grazing constantly. So maybe feed seaweed less than a few times a week. You know what I mean? Because otherwise they're going to fill up on that. But it's like they're always searching. And the reason why I know too that not only because I've seen the sailfins pick at it, but on the top level where they can't reach, then that's the only place that it grows. So then I mermaid my emerald crabs. It's like, okay, you live here. You live here.
You hold them up there.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll make emerald crab cage it. No, I'm just kidding. You will live here and you will like it. And you will eat your dinner or no dessert.
You will eat your peas.
Yeah.
The one vegetable.
So I don't know. I would be curious to see if other people have had the same success with sailfins as I have.
Yeah. Comment
because
in the comments.
I know that when Reef Builders did their feature on one of the tanks that I did, one of the comments on it was at Josh's house with his 400-gallon reef was I didn't see a speck of bubble algae, and we have a sailfin tang, and they're like, wow, it's a huge sailfin. So I'm not sure of that, or if I'm just super picky.
You're getting really lucky or something like
that. Otherwise there's something else that's eating it because there's another tank connected to it that has bubble algae in it. Not very much, but some. And so I don't know.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. And even if it does sneak in, he probably wipes it out before it
Yep,
even
right
becomes very
away.
useful.
I don't have a fox face in there. I don't have anything. I don't even think I have an emerald crab in there because sometimes I get nervous if they're going to pick out my corals.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think we, backtracked and covered that
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I think we did a good job recovering that and making sure we went over some more specific inverts for everybody. So nice job, ladies.
And algae is a problem for everybody. So
Yeah,
it's,
Yes,
never
everybody gets algae.
never
I
goes
think everybody
away.
needs a little bit of help on understanding, or just like, how can I combat this without having to, elbow grease it?
Mhm.
And so, I mean, knowledge is power. I'm
Yeah.
all, if someone has another invert that we didn't cover that does fantastic, I'm all ears.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It helps everybody. Share the
does.
knowledge.
It does.
Share the knowledge.
Oh,
So you guys ready to dive into our main topic?
I am. I'm so excited.
So this is one that we all found really interesting, but so we're going to do mimicry, and there are a lot of animals that outside of the ocean that use mimicry. There's flowers, there's snakes, there's insects, which actually is what gave me the idea for this part of the podcast was being at Jen's. Remember, Evie? And we had those leaf bugs and the
Oh, you
stick
mean
bugs.
Sarah's?
Yeah, sorry. I'm like, no, Jen now has.
I'm like,
insects.
you at my house when I was gone. This is weird. And I have leaf bugs.
Yes, and you have.
I
leaf bugs.
let her in.
No,
you
sorry.
told me I could hang out anytime I wanted, Jen.
Yeah.
Spare key
Well, I
through the
guess
back door.
Up there.
now this makes a whole lot of sense. No, I'm just kidding.
No, so we were at the butterfly pavilion and we got to hold some really awesome leaf bugs and some stick bugs. So that kind of
cool.
went down this path.
So before you go through mimicry, do you want to kind of explain, just in case people don't understand what we're talking about, mimicry?
Sure.
Or I'm not sure if you were going to, but I think that would be a good place to start because I didn't know much about it before Monday. I'm not going to lie.
So camouflage, a lot of us think of camouflage and then there's mimicry, and there are some lines that are blurred in between. And again, we're not scientists and we are not studying mimicry. So this is still a subject that a lot of scientists go back and forth on. Is it camouflage? Is it mimicry? Is it some of both? But so we're going to speak in general terms. So in general terms, camouflage, we can all probably think of like the octopus, for instance, generally speaking, uses camouflage. It can change the texture of its skin. It can change the color, and it's blending into the background. It doesn't no specific, it's just the color, the lines are blurred, and it's mimicking. See, I use mimic. See, that's how tricky it is. It's camouflaging to the background. And we'll talk about one that actually is using mimicry specifically. But that's a line that we're all still doing a lot of research on, because sometimes we don't even know who or why they're doing this. So we'll keep that in mind. Did you have anything on that you guys wanted to add?
I think it's just
earlier. It was like one of the first times it was documented was somewhere around like the 1600s, when it was first starting to be documented. And I was like, oh, well, that's actually really cool. That we've been trying to observe it for so long, and the species alone is just ever expanding on it because of the blurred lines, because they're trying to honestly figure out, is this camouflage or is this a mimic type of behavior?
And what's go ahead, Abby.
And that was really cool.
Yeah, what's interesting is that we do have a fossil record of mimicry, but a lot of it is preserved in amber. So and a lot of that is leaf bugs and stick bugs. There's like a few examples of other things that maybe could be mimicry, but that's the interesting thing about mimicry, is that these things really have to be in their environment for us to see them and see. So 3 steps: you got the model, the mimic, and then you have the dupe, which I thought was pretty hilarious because someone's getting duped, and it's normally the predator. But so you have to see this interaction when you're looking at a skeleton. You can't see skin color, you can't see behavior. So fossil record normally on that is in the amber on these bugs, because bugs are one of the first things that pops into our mind. But that's why I thought it was interesting for us to do it in relation to our aquariums, because we might also not see the mimicry behavior of these animals in our aquariums because we're taking them away from the dupe or the model, right? We could have one, but not. And there's some like lines there where it could be more than just 3 animals, right? It could be multiple models, multiple dupes, whatever. But generally speaking, but we're taking them out of that environment, and we might not always see it in our tanks.
I think too, the interesting part is understanding our fish. You know, why do certain fish have certain colors, or why? I mean, I know we'll delve or dive a little bit farther into this later, but there are fish that are actually they're in the name of their title is like a mimic. You know, a chocolate mimic, this mimic, this mimic. Why do they call it mimic? Why would they mimic that? You know what I mean? And they do. They look very similar to those things. So I mean, I think it's just fun to understand like the fish in our tanks. And then 2, I learned a ton about mimicry that I've actually witnessed when I'm diving, that I had no idea why they did certain things like that. But it actually, now that I understand it, it makes it that much more cool.
And sometimes we're picking them because we think, oh, that's a cool color. Those stripes are cool. Like, ooh, yellow and black stripes. Unbeknownst to us that they are that way for a reason.
Yeah.
So
true.
So
who wants to kick it off? Who's going to do the first specimen?
Go ahead.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Okay, wait, let's do it. So,
all right, okay.
Everybody. 1, 2, 3, shoot. Oh, you saw mine first.
Yeah.
All right, you're the loser, Kelsey. Let's go.
Okay. That was okay. So I'm going to do the dusky dottyback, which was one that they kind of had an idea that it was doing some mimicry, but it wasn't closely studied. And this one's interesting because it crosses multiple lines. So also let's mention that there is actually labeled types of mimicry. So, and it's normally named after the old scientists that, studied it. So we have Batesian, and you know what? I might say these wrong, just heads up. We have Malarian. It sounds like I'm saying malaria. We have aggressive. We have social, and some of these may fall into each other.
Yep.
But there are actual names for these types of mimicry. So keep that in mind. And I'll try to put them, like, when we know what they are based on some of the research we've done, we'll try to mention, like, okay, this is Batesian. So with the damselfish, it was interesting because they noticed this infiltration of this damsel, or I'm sorry, I'm saying damsel because I'm giving away what I'm about to say. That's how bad at jokes I am. The dottyback they noticed was infiltrating what's the animal? Damsels. See? Damsel colonies and eating the young. So that tells you what these things are going to do to any tiny fish in your tank. So there's that. But so they noticed that there was brown ones and there was yellow dottybacks. They actually are the same species. And so what they did was they made 2 separate mounds in the ocean, and they would have the colony or group of damselfish that are yellow, and then you have the brown damselfish. And so they would take a brown dottyback out of that group and put it, and they did this in tanks too. So they did both the ocean and the tanks so that they could, keep track of it a little closer, but dropped the brown dottyback in with the yellow damsels, and it changed colors. Which that's really cool. Yeah, that's crazy enough. But what it was mimicking, and this is aggressive mimicry, and also reverse Batesian mimicry, was the parents of the juvenile damsels. So it's coming in like a wolf in sheep's clothing thing, like, I'm just
your mom here. Nothing to see.
An adult damselfish, and it was snatching and eating the babies. But then it was specific to the color of the damselfish. And then they also did a study on whether these fish blending into these, I'm saying damselfish colonies were more protected from their predators than, let's say, a dottyback that hadn't infiltrated.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, they were less preyed upon, or they got away with sneaking around the damsel fields, snagging up their young, and
Going
less of
into
them
the
got eaten
nursery.
themselves, going into the
Yeah.
nursery and
Oh,
snagging them.
rude.
Yeah. So I thought that was they didn't know that they were changing colors. They just thought there was a brown and a yellow. And
That's actually really cool.
that they could, now that we know that they can go back and forth.
I think a lot of times also whenever you see color change with fish, it typically has to do a lot with stress response. So to now hear that this is actually for the benefit of the predator, that means that it would, I would assume, take on a color change similar in, sorry, that was Buster, in nature to a stress response. But it's interesting that it holds the color, because usually with stress response, you won't see that color modeling that you'll see on some of the yellow fox faces, or
Yeah.
even the magnificent fox face where they get all blotchy. That'll only last for a few minutes. So knowing that this would have the longevity to just chill in a colony undetected, that's actually really impressive.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And
Sorry.
Buster says he agrees.
Yeah, Buster
So,
agrees.
so that's
Yeah.
fair. I mean,
So then I'm like, okay, you buy a dusky dottyback as yellow and you get it into your tank. Is it going to be brown? I don't have one. So maybe someone who does can say whether that happened to them or not. Or if you buy a brown one and you put it in and you happen to have some yellow damsels, is it going to turn yellow?
Or would a yellow tang possibly trigger a color change?
I don't know. Because there's
Is
also,
it almost like is it almost kind of like the seahorses? Like you give them something that's a little bit more yellow around in their
yeah, and
habitat,
they do.
and they'll
They
shift.
yeah,
I didn't
Maybe
say
it's
that.
something like that.
Yeah, the paper didn't say that, and that's more, there is a thing called social mimicry where
Social
just
mimicry.
coincidentally, a lot of this color fish will school with each other. I mean, we all kind of heard of like when they're in a big school like that, it's protection. So that,
well,
but
it's
that's,
strength in numbers.
yeah, but it's not like they're purposely changing that color. They just already happen to be that color. And so they're just like, oh, you look kind of like me, and you look kind of like me, and or I'll just chill and hang out here together and be a little school. But they're not purposely trying to mimic one fish or the other. So I don't know. I don't know if other yellow fish would change it or not. I would imagine that there's behavior that goes along with it that triggers it. Like the feeding behavior. They're feeding on the young of these damselfish. So I don't know. But
I totally had to mute myself because Buster's like having a fit. Did it work if I muted myself, or were you guys still able to hear him griping at the golfers?
I didn't even notice.
Okay, cool.
I didn't either.
At golfers or squirrels?
Yeah.
Or the ducks.
Or just basically anything.
Yeah, it's anything. He has a lot of opinions.
So I'm going to touch just quickly on that social mimicry, because I actually saw that in Indonesia, and I thought it was really amazing, because I saw Midas blenny, which most people know is a gold Midas blenny. It's yellow, and then a school of lyre-tailed anthias, which are completely different colors. But what they're mimicking is more of the behavior. So what I thought was interesting about Midas blennies, they don't actually have a swim bladder. So that's how they, for those of you who don't know, they can't maintain a neutral buoyancy. So that's why they kind of use their pec fins like little feet and hop around. Well, where I saw them was like in a very turbulent area on a reef shelf where all the anthias were, but it's strength in numbers. So the anthia school, Midas doesn't have any school buddies, so he hangs over with it. I mean, but literally the swim pattern changed completely to look exactly like the anthias. So it was swimming just like an active anthias, but the anthias kind of move fast, then dart back, move fast and dart back. So that's how it worked for that. And it was in a huge sun colony that was on that particular reef in that area. And I never understood, because I'm like, Midas blennies, lyre-tailed anthias, you know what I mean? It made no sense to me. And because of just their genetics and how their body is built and how they move around. And I just thought that was like, it just was like one of those aha moments. Like, I actually saw that happen. And that was really, really interesting, so that it could be safer in a big school.
And that what's cool is that they can actually use multi different types of mimicry. So there is
Mhm.
behavioral. I knew I was going to botch that word, and I've been saying it all day. Behavioral.
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 Yep. This will be a thread throughout all our podcasts. I'm literally sitting in my car saying it. But there is behavioral mimicry. So the one of the batfish, and I'm going to butcher his name too. Pinatus, the one with the little orange rim around
Oh,
the
I just
body.
always called it an orange rim
That would
batfish.
be easier to say. The orange rim batfish. They actually, the juveniles will lay, horizontally and mimic
Mhm.
a flatworm. So
Mhm.
their movement, their behavior is mimicking something toxic.
Yeah.
So they can, so like the Midas bunny, the behavior of swimming, they were maybe mimicking that, and also knew the social group was safe for them. So like I said, some of these cross over, which what makes it so interesting. I think the behavioral also goes into yours, Abby.
It does, yeah. Because I picked the mimic octopus. Now they are part of the Batesian, mostly mimicry. But additionally to that, they are actually the only species in the genus for that behavior. Um, Typically, with that type of octopus, they live in areas where there's a lot of silt and debris, open area, not a whole lot of water structure. So these animals actually have to get comfortable disguising themselves as other things, just even to get around for basic needs of survival. So whenever you think about a mimic octopus, they're beautiful. They have very long, flowing arms, and they use those arms for so many different benefits. One thing that I did not know that it was actually very common for it to mimic is a lionfish. And whenever I thought about that, I was like, that makes perfect sense because the tentacles do get very nice and wavy.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was like, and it's got the stripe pattern, so I thought that was actually very impressive. Now I have kept mimics before, and the behavior that I used to enjoy seeing was whenever it would behave like a jellyfish. I had a mimic that loved to get in front of the return for the tank that I had. And he would actually do this in front of the water. He'd start at the corner of the tank and then he'd just kind of build himself back up. And he was so neat to watch whenever he decided to come out and do that behavior. Of course, he would only do it whenever the store was closed. So he didn't want to show off to anybody. So I never got to show anyone. But now, additionally, with that, I put so many notes in here on this guy. They will also um, go into the type of banded sea snake behavior where they'll slither. And that is more common to see down on the floor directly because they're trying to get from point A to point B and it can be much further away. So they've got to look as ferocious as possible. And, most people, animals included, don't necessarily want to deal with a sea snake. Another actual animal that they will mimic is they will perch themselves up on rock and they'll sit there and then they'll make their tentacles come up and they'll mimic anemones as
Oh
well.
wow, I didn't see that one.
Yeah. And I did not know that one either because that one actually seems like a lot of effort to sit there and pretend to be a coral. But they have been observed doing that. So it's actually really debated heavily across different articles on whether or not the mimic octopus is going off of instinct because they do see the same exact activities across various individuals or if this is a learned behavior because they'll
Yeah.
see different ones doing different things. So they think it might be both, maybe one more than the other, which is cool. I like that it could possibly be both and that they may learn it because, as the majority of us know, octopus are very
So
intelligent.
smart.
They do so many different intellect activities with them. They need lots of enrichment inside of the facilities where they're worked with and kind of given toys just to kind of keep themselves from doing bad things like escaping,
Oh,
which they can
yes.
do.
I loved
Um,
that too. I saw that and I thought the same thing.
Yeah, and another thing that they will do is they do the pattern contrasting as
The
well.
camouflaging.
They do, yeah, but they'll do more of a flashing pattern than anything. They'll do modeling as well whenever they get closer to rock work and they're trying to blend in somewhere. But they do say that they do a lot more of the flashing, and that's just because the flashing helps amplify whatever it is that they're pretending or mimicking to be. Now, also with that, dude, with that info going in with our subject, I did find in our Reef Builders archives an article back from 2013 by Jeff Kurtz that actually covers quite a few different species on our website. So I will give that link to Remy so that he can put that in at the bottom of our podcast. So you guys can go back and read something from over a decade ago or
That's
so cool.
ago. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It
Yeah.
did different types of mimicry animals.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I did
From
in
a-
my research. I didn't even come across that one, so that's great.
Mhm. Yeah. So the title of it is Mimicry Marine Fish, Mimic Harmless Predator, or Camouflage. So I will
Cool.
have that so you guys can go see something that's a little bit older and see that we've actually covered this in an article sense. And it does have really cool pictures to go along with it. Jeff did a really nice job on it. He touched on quite a few different species.
That's
So I thought that
awesome.
was really cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think, circling back to like the different fish that you'd actually see in like your LFS or actually in your tanks. I mean, doing something even like you have the chocolate mimic. So I'm going to use that as an example. So chocolate mimic tang, and then you have the Ibly or Ebly or Ebly eye, whatever mimic tang, and the half black. So you have all of these, and they're mimicking what they're actually mimicking are the angelfish of them. But why?
Or butterflies. It's really common for butterflies also to be mimicked because the hamlets will mimic a specific type of butterfly. And there's the blue hamlet, which I did not know that the blue hamlet is also a mimic species. They mimic the blue reef chromis, the dark
Oh,
blue.
That's
And
a
I
big
did not-
old reef chromis.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, just so everybody knows, that is not like the usual really cool kind of sky blue one that we see more often. These do get really large. I did have a school of 12 at one point, and they just at one point when they get to about 3 inches to 4 inches, you're just like, that doesn't even look like a chromis anymore. So once
Yeah.
I learned that hamlet will live amongst those blue reef chromis, I was like, well, that makes sense now because they eventually do get to the size of that blue hamlet. And the reason why he does that is because he wants to predate on all the cleanup crew that will live amongst the area where the chromis like to reside. And he just kind of goes in and he takes them out slowly, and they don't think anything about it because
Never saw
why
him
would
coming.
they? Yeah, they never saw
Right.
it coming. He was hanging out with the chromis, and those are our friends. So,
And
that
that's
one
kind
was
of the point of mimicry. There has to be a benefit. There has to be some sort of benefit
even
to animal.
parasitic. Yeah,
Right.
there's even a parasitic version. So that way, they say it with parasitic, but also it's kind of like this one maybe is telling you it may not taste good. This one may not be appetizing, so you want to stay away from it. So I thought that was really interesting too.
And I think
And that's what they were. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that one was also technically Batesian, is mimicking something that tastes bad.
Bad.
But you yourself are,
Mhm.
sea chicken. You could be eaten.
Right.
You're delicious. But
And that's
boy,
what they were
mimicking is
saying that
terrible.
the sail, or that's what they were saying with the surgeonfish. So they're saying that these mimic tangs actually mimic angels, which I guess are known to taste bad. Again, I have not tasted them, but it's not. It's the spines that I guess that the fish don't want, and then also too. Dwarf angels are known for being very fast, and so a lot of fish like that are predators of those fish. They're like, I tried to catch that one long time ago, didn't work out for me, not worth my time. And so
Yeah.
then they're mimicking those. So they're like, hey, I can, I'm fast too. I'm not worth your time. So that's how they get, that's one of the things. And then the different species or the different colorations are based on where they're found within the world's oceans. So different oceans have different mimicry of those angels, which I thought was super interesting. Because for many years ago, I thought, a chocolate mimic and the Iowa mimic and the half black, I thought they were all kind of the same, or the lemon peel. Like I thought they were all the same thing. Like they would all end up looking like that, but that's not the case at all.
And that spans multiple species. So then we have the fang blenny mimics, which whatever fang blenny is local to that area, they have a mimic of those. But the chocolate mimic, well, any of the mimics, the mimic tang, I've been wondering, like, why, outside of what you pointed out, Jen, why mimic an angel? And it's because, well, at least the Australian mimic. So I think that's, what is that? That's the lemon peel, right? Or is that the chocolate?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So they are mimicking specifically angels because the angel that lives in that area are spongivores. So what the tang is trying to do is the damsels cultivate these algae fields. I was telling Jen a little bit of this, so you can chime in, Jen, if you have something to add to this.
No.
But they are cultivating these algae fields, the damsels, and we all know damsels are just little a-holes. No one wants to mess with them. They're going to chase you out of there. But they're also lazy. Well, maybe smart, because they know that angelfish are spongivores. They're not going to come in here and eat our algae. So why waste our time chasing angelfish out of here? But then the tang's like, And then the tang that's mimicking the angelfish gets the advantage and gets to chow down on all these delicious algae fields of the damselfish. The damselfish is just like, it's an angel. So the tang gains an advantage. They have these great algae grazing fields. And I think it even said something like, so this was in 2004 when they discovered this in Australia with that population of damsels and mimics. And that they actually put a percentage on how much healthier / better diet that the mimic tangs had than the other tangs that didn't have that mimic ability. And I was like, that's amazing. They are literally one-upping other
They
tangs.
found a way to vary their diet.
Right.
Yeah, and just they were saying literally just make it better. Like their diet and health are better at that age of mimic than other tangs, because these algae fields are so rich and I guess good that they have a one-up.
That's actually really cool.
So I'm sure there's, as Jen was saying, there's probably damsel populations that are relative to the region of where each mimic is from.
And they're eating all their stuff. They're eating the lettuce.
That's right.
Going into their local pantry and taking all their snacks.
Yeah.
But there's ones like that where you're like, but why? Why are you mimicking that? Right. And like humans are so good at pattern recognition that sometimes we see some mimics and we're like, that's really bad. That's not a good mimic. But they're only trying to trick their predator. So
I think that if you go to Walmart, you'll see a lot of mimics. I know what you're trying to be, ma'am, but you not working for you.
Walmart specifically.
Yeah. It's a very scary place for me.
But yeah, because the other one that I was thinking of that to me, I'm like, well, that's not that good of a mimic, is the red chorus wrasse, the juveniles. And like we get them and they're like, some people want them to stay that color, and the adult fish is just, it's gorgeous. That's one of the fish that kind of like brought me into, I saw an adult red chorus and I was like, wow, that is a gorgeous fish. But they're mimicking the anemone fish or clownfish of their area. So like Red Sea clownfish, but then like you count the stripes on the clownfish and then you count the stripes on the juvenile coral.
Yeah, he's got too many.
Wait a minute, this is off.
Wait a minute, one of you is not like the other.
Well, maybe that tells you the fish can't count.
And there are tons and tons of different ones, like cleaner. And I know we can't cover them all because, obviously we'd be here forever. And we're, like you said, we're not scientists. But I mean, it's just so interesting to actually see these things in our aquariums and understand our fish a little bit better. Like you can understand like maybe their dietary needs or just trying, or yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, to me it's just fascinating to learn about these animals in our aquariums and then just become better aquarists because of the things that we understand.
Yeah, once we delve into this, we realized how many types of
Yeah,
mimicry
none of
there
these
were.
things, there's so many different things. Like I'm going to just touch on one quick thing. The marine beta I thought was super interesting because when we
Yeah,
think of
that
a
one's
marine
really good.
beta,
Mm-hmm.
you think of marine beta, you're like, okay, you would not think of it to mimic an actual eel.
I
And so
know.
I
He
thought
picked
that
a
was
really
so,
hardcore mimic.
yeah. So what they actually do is they stick their tail out, which now
Mhm.
everyone, the marine beta has that what looks like an eye, and then they wiggle their tail to almost give that.
Yeah, because their tail has that
Yeah.
split in it, so
And
it looks similar to an
yeah.
eel, the way they'll hold their mouth for their
Yep.
breathing. Yeah. I know I was
And then
reading that and I was like, someone's gonna pick that one. I'm not gonna do
no,
it. Like, I'm gonna read all
I just
about
thought it was really, really interesting because you're like,
it.
okay, that makes sense. But if someone
Yeah.
were, if you had like a multiple choice quiz and you said, what would this mimic? You know what I mean? And you'd said marine beta, I wouldn't have chose eel.
And
That's for
that's
sure.
actually a pretty good one. Like when you look
Yeah,
at,
that's a really good one.
yeah, like they're mimicking pretty well. Also, I'd be
Mhm.
scared to hide my face and not see the enemy coming, predator
Yeah.
coming.
Well,
But
but
Yeah,
it
but
whatever
I,
works.
also that may also explain a lot of their typical behavior when it comes into play with the aquarium because they do tend to be a little bit more of a cryptic fish. They do tend to hide in the back, sit
Mhm.
in overhangs, or be amongst the rockwork. And that may just be more of an instinct response because maybe they don't feel comfortable in the aquarium just yet. Maybe you've got a tang that's really bossy that tends to push him to the back. So he's like, all right, well, fine, I'm just going to sit here and be an eel.
Mhm.
And
And they
I
are
did
super
not
elusive.
realize that that may be the behavior that they're exhibiting whenever, you say as an LFS or as a hobbyist, say, well, the marine beta is beautiful or comets, whichever name that you prefer to use.
Mhm.
Um, but they tend to hide a lot. Well, that's why. And
Mhm.
so when I figured that out today and I was reading about it, I was like, oh, you know what? That's actually really interesting. So everybody can go share that if they're an LFS or they got someone that maybe has a marine beta and they don't. You can go tell your friend; they'll be really
Well,
impressed.
I did a quiz today. I'm like, I'll tell my staff, I'm like, hey, if we were talking about mimicry just because I thought it was super interesting. I'm like, if you were a marine beta, what would you be mimicking? And you should have seen the answers. And maybe that'd be even fun, like for people to see, like,
Oh, that would be cool.
what are the funny answers that you'd come up with certain things like that because that doesn't match to me. I mean,
Hmm.
but now that you think of the behavior, now it matches. So I
Hmm.
mean, you think of like like a Valentini puffer and the filefish, they look very similar. Obviously, they get that, but I just think it's interesting. So I think that'd be interesting to just even for our listeners to, what
Hmm.
are just some interesting ones that you know of, or things that people thought that it might be a mimic of. It's just fun.
Hmm.
Well, again,
Yeah.
removed from their environment, I've never seen the filefish mimic of a toby. Maybe you
Oh,
guys
you
have.
haven't?
No, I've
Mhm.
never seen. I mean, I've seen it in videos, but I've never seen it myself, and I've definitely
Yeah,
never seen them
I've never
together.
witnessed it in person.
Yeah,
Oh, yep, I've seen them. They look almost exactly the same.
so they're good
And the
That's
mimics.
reason why
cool.
they mimic them is because the puffer's toxic, and
Hmm.
so they're actually acting as like, don't eat me, I'll poison you.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
then yeah,
That's
And
cool.
I think most of them are Batesian. Malarian, actually, that one was hard to find in the
yeah,
ocean.
Hmm.
because they're both what it mean. I think they're both. It's a isn't that where they're venomous and both of them
Toxic,
are
venomous,
venomous?
poisonous, but yeah, both of them are. And so they're
Both of them are.
mutually
Yep.
benefiting off of them
Hmm.
being
Yep.
poisonous. That one was a little harder. I would imagine that there's got to be slugs, nudibranch.
Yep, and that's what
Yeah,
they said. It was a
a lot of
lot of
them are drawn
nudibranchs
to
and
it.
stuff like
Hmm.
that. That's where they would fit into that
Hmm.
category.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
So it's not, it's actually that they both are in fact toxic, that they benefit from the widespread. And I guess too, the predator gets a real clear, like, just stay away from anything that looks like that. All of
Hmm.
them.
mhm.
They get a
Yep.
really wide warning of don't mess with that thing.
Universal, no touchy.
That's what
Yeah.
That's what was cool about the octopus too, is like, did it learn based on tests that it did with different predators? Like, okay, if I use the lionfish here, it works for this predator. If I use the sea
Mhm.
snake here, it works for this predator.
Mhm.
Like the
Yeah, the
learning
open
behavior
area
part.
slither from point A to point B, I was like, that makes so much sense for that animal because they
Mhm.
live in areas where there's not a whole lot of coverage.
So they're learning, but they're also remembering that
Mhm.
this worked last time, or this definitely didn't work last time. I'm missing a few pieces. You know, like that. That is just that's fascinating.
That is cool. Very cool. I
Yeah,
love
that
this. I loved this topic. I really
Yeah.
did. This was a good one. I enjoyed it. I wish that Sarah could be on, but we'll get to do a continuance of it and we'll get to hear Sarah's. Unless that was some of Sarah's that you got to touch on
no,
at
I
all.
didn't get
I'm not.
any of hers.
Okay.
We kind
Sarah,
of
you did
wanted
not send over your homework.
Yeah.
to send her homework. We did want to kind of go further into the differences between the types. So
Mhm.
maybe we'll save
Yeah, we can
the
save that for whenever Sarah
Yeah.
gets
yeah,
on.
we'll
Because
let
then she
her
can
build.
bring in all the scientific technical terms and
Mm-hmm.
say them
Yeah.
correctly, maybe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah,
we'll sit here and still butcher them.
that's right.
That's
Balerian, Malarian, Batasian, Balasian, all those types.
All
bacon.
of the things.
Awesome. Well, this was great. I enjoyed it, ladies.
I did too, and I hope everybody that's listening enjoyed it as well. If you have other interesting animals that we missed, obviously we can't cover. There's 60 plus that they've been studying, but there's
Mm-hmm.
always interesting facts, and I think if anyone wants to chime in on that, I'll raise my hand to that. I'm interested. So if you find something else,
Yeah.
I'm all
And we
ears.
read the
So
comments. So
yeah, so
tell us.
I think
Tell us
let
so we
us
can
know.
have the chat with you. Yeah, it'll be good. All right. Well, Jen, do you want to sign us out?
Sure. So thank you guys all for listening, and we will listening, watching all of the things, and we will be back soon.
All right. Thank
Bye,
you,
guys.
guys.